So I've separated this into, like, let's call it chapters, and I'll try to we're going to run through this just to kind of a brief review of 50 episodes of D&D. 150 hours of D&D.
Wow.
Something like that.
Boiled down to how much time?
Oh, 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
If I miss something, then go ahead and shout it out, because I'm sure I did.
Sheesh.
All right. The story began way back at Port Leylon. Where's my pointer? So you guys are over here at Port, way down this way, this elven town of Port Leylon, down here in the south. And you were part of a party to go journey to Steamcliff, this old home of gnomes, and you were hired by a fellow named Varney. And you guys journeyed out to Steamcliff, which is this mountain sort of over here on the south side of the Chromatic Sea. And while you got there, you noticed, when you got there, you discovered the previous gnome scouts were all dead. Some monster had gone around and started messing people up and turning people into mucus, and there was darkness clouds, all kinds of weirdness there, but the Steamcliff was empty, and so the gnomes started settling in there. While you were there, you met Omira, and she was some curious woodland creature, but more. You made your way to Ryvid, which is the Maru city, which is this spot right over this way, which was a city of Maru, which are warforged, that Ulf, one of your people, was. This chapter is just called Steamcliff, by the way. You later discover that the Maru history goes way, way back. They're kind of an adversarial force, way, way back. Some of them have memories from forever ago. Ulf didn't, but you were kind of starting to work on that. The Maru, you learned, did not like the gnomes moving into their territory. They wanted them out. In Steamcliff, you discovered there was a portal down below in Steamcliff. And you guys went through there, some strange place. Agandor was the name of it. And it was some, like, volcanic, desolate place. You came back through. There's some sort of weird, timey stuff when you came back through that. Did I say that right? Agandor? I can't remember if it was Agandor. Avendor. I can't remember where my consonant was. Anyway, you came back out of there. You're not sure what the portal opened for, but for some reason this portal opened, and eventually these frog creatures started coming out of it. Slod started coming out of that portal. And
Agandor is correct.
Agandor. And they started, like, basically slaughtering everything and causing a big problem in the whole region. And you, along with the Maru, because the gnomes were pretty much done for once the Slod came through, tried to fight back and get these things out of here, because they were really putting a dent in the Maru holdings as well. Speaking of the Maru and Ryvid, you met Hope, who you later learned was the daughter of Jack, previous party member, previous campaign. She has a son somewhere up northwest, and she lives kind of in relative peace in Ryvid. You also learned of an ant-like creature named Malefique living below Ryvid that was prisoner, guest, one or the other. Along with the Maru, you went back and you fought back against the Slod. They built you a bomb. Ulf made the ultimate sacrifice with a very bad throw and blew up Steamcliff. Everything collapsed. The portal was closed. Ulf was smashed. The party escaped. Hooray, the day is saved. Steamcliff has closed, maybe closed the portal, collapsed the portal at least. And with that, you ended up making your way out of there and to the west. Anything I forgot from the first phase of Steamcliff? All good?
I don't think so.
Anyone listening anymore?
That's the general.
We learned a little bit about, Ulf learned a little bit about what was happening previously with the Maru.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there. I kind of skimmed over that stuff with the Maru and, like, fighting against the ancients, and Ulf had some sort of a his memories were there, but they weren't accessible.
Complete.
Yeah, and you were sort of working on getting that back, and then Ulf died.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you moved to the west, and you left all this behind, and you traveled west to first Port Leylon, and while you were there, you went and you hopped while you were there. So one of the bond members found you guys, and said, "Hey, go back and chat with Elradar, who was Eru's former boss man." So you went to Port Leon. Then you traveled by boat, by ghost ship. No members of the crew, just a ghost ship called. Did I write it? Yeah, the Haven. You travel from there to the. Oh, my map here. I don't have this island on here, do I? To the west, to the Elf Island. Now, on the Elf Island, you went to the town of Lissarat, which is a small little village. The Bond have a presence there, and they seem to secretly kind of run things among there. And there's a boss there you guys were chatting with.
Yeah.
He had you go deliver a package to Alatya, the holy city of Lissarat, the bread god, and deliver a package to Rogar with this orc who the town kind of thought was a hero, but maybe he wasn't such a hero. Maybe he was more like he made himself the hero. It's kind of what you gathered there. He was you did find out he was working with the Bond, but reluctantly they had his children, daughter, and but you're like, tough luck. Here's your package. We're out of here. And so you took off. You had some bread and took off back to Lissarat, Elven port town. You had an uncomfortable chat with Elradar, who showed up to have a chat with you and very friendly, yet menacingly say hello to you. You got Saren questioning whether Saren was a good guy or not. I think was somewhere along the lines of that. He wanted you to, or he told you about Yendra missing, which is also one of Eru's former comrades. And that she was last seen in Port Illidan, and so you hopped a boat to Port Illidan. On the boat, you had a murder mystery, and that's about it. That was about it. It was a murder mystery. It's kind of side note because I wanted to do a murder mystery. But among the murder mystery, you had Captain Gezron was sacrificing some people. I guess I never really revealed what all happened there.
No.
Anyone remember what happened?
He was sacrificing people to summon the whatever it was.
Yeah, to summon the big elemental.
Right.
And then he did. And then we just were like, we'll deal with that later.
We're gonna go away.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
He was working with who was it? The rogue. What was she? I don't know. There was a rogue there. That was kind of buddying up with Zarik. So behind the scenes, he was working with her, letting her keep the loot. Some things went a little awry, but so he could sacrifice them to get the blood to raise the thing. She wasn't really in it for that. She was just in it for the loot. Anyway, while you were there, one of the guests of the ship was Lily. Oh yeah, A-Rock is here now. Ulf is dead. A-Rock's here. And A-Rock made his presence known by yanking the red gemstone in Lily's chest that had given her some strange power. She didn't know what to do with it. She didn't have control over it, and she was kind of losing it, and things were going nutso, and A-Rock just yanked the thing out of her chest. She blew up.
It worked.
Lots of things.
Disadvantage.
Lots of things blew up.
Disadvantage nat 20. Yeah. Dang.
It was a day, and eventually you guys got imprisoned, and Gezron and he docked it. Gezron and he summoned some shades, and he ran off to this little island in this sort of pirate island land over here. And you guys watched this big cloud appear and this big giant wave, and the wave crashed or went to the west. Later on, you found that Dreadsilt Lighthouse was hit by a big wave and flooded. And then
Lamu was the
Lamu was the elemental. You guys had a tough time driving a ship, and you beached it to the east over here, kind of near Port Illidan. And on the trek to Port Illidan, some imps came in, a whole bunch of imps, and destroyed A-Rock. Story ended so soon.
Yep, I got absolutely blasted by those little guys.
Yeah, nasty. That's chapter 2. Chapter 2 was called The Bond. We're on chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Behind enemy lines, we call this one. So, when you arrived in Port Illidan, this town over here, you discover because you were kind of heading this way to find Yendra and also find Saren's sisters, because you think you heard reports of the Hinge where he's from getting attacked. So you're eventually heading over here to the Hinge, over this way. And while you're here, you discover the lizard folk have just like gone nuts and taken over a bunch of the Empire, the Emir Empire lands. They've gobbled up the Hinge of the Moon, and you also discover there's a little bit of a Bond presence here in Port Illidan. But mostly you discover that the lizard folk have taken the Hinge of the Moon, and that the lizards are like not normal lizard folk. They're just like, they're relentless. They do not become prisoners, and they are commanded by the Nostra, which are these cloaked figures, bright red eyes, leads into Krog's backstory with bright-eyed cloaked figures.
I was gonna ask, yeah.
Yeah.
That was chapter. Okay.
Yeah. So then you manage to sneak in behind enemy lines. You meet up with the underground of Emirian folks, and you discover that Saren's sister is at a camp near the Hinge, and that his other sister had been taken up to Talon. You also discover that his other sister has a red gem in her chest. You eventually ambush a caravan. You find Yendra. She's a little bit out of sorts, but she's also kind of like stuck on this. The Bond is being run by someone named Chain, not Elradar. He's up to something. He's doing all this. That's her thing, and so she doesn't stick around too long. She goes that way. While you're hanging out in a cave here to the north, you meet some dragonlings, and they talk about Grandma Omira, who's not really Grandma, but they call her Grandma Omira, and you discover that Omira, the strange woodland creature, is not just a strange woodland creature. She's a dragon. She's a young dragon, and her mom is named Omira. But with her help, you manage to fight the camp. Somewhere in there, you attack a Nostra. You kill a Nostra. You discover that the Nostras, I think that was at the caravan, the Nostras are shape-shifting, or at least putting up a disguise of some sort. And they're magical, and they also have some sort of commanding power with them. You manage to get the prison escape. Omira disappears. Like, she fights for a bit, then she stops. You later discover that she seems to have changed sides one way or another, and to join the Nostra. Of the 32 prisoners you freed, running west, trying to get back to Emir lands, 15 of them made it. It was an ugly day. And I had, you figured out the Nostras lead, the lizards blindly follow, and the Nostras can disguise themselves in command. That's kind of what you figured there, discovered there. And then we have chapter 4. Like everything in that little spot. There's a lot of stuff in there, but that's kind of sums it up. It was mostly just sort of like behind enemy lines, sneaking around, picking off folks and all that. Eric, you are very quiet.
I know, I was muted.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of time moving around in that one.
A lot of sneaking around time.
Yeah, a lot of sneaking around time.
A lot of tints, like, on edge.
Yeah.
So, chapter 4, I call this one Mama Omira. You make your way back to Port Illidan, and you discover that Port Illidan, sorry, I missed my pointy device here. Port Illidan was attacked, and it's wet. Some sort of storm had rolled in, and a lot of the folks have left. When you came in the first time, it was tons of refugees were there, and the town was packed. Well, now it's back empty again because a ship called the IS Torrent came in and scooped up a bunch of folks. I think like 300 of them, and ended up traveling south. That boat left south. Also, there was an army just parked outside of Port Illidan of lizards and Emir, and assuming the lizard were going to attack Port Illidan, but eventually they just turned and went south. And so you, the commander kind of asked you to scout for them. You went south, down here into the sort of the more drier, desolate patch down this way. You followed that army for a while. You did see one of the Nostra like flew in, kind of like a big bat figure, and then landed there. And this one had a presence about it. and seemed to be some sort of leader while you were trailing these folks. And you assumed they were going to be moving their way towards, I think, Fort Ivar, and so you're trying to cut them off before they got there. So you ran there miraculously fast. Along the way, you found this old gnome city, and you found a book called Almanac by Terry the Topside Gnome. And you also discovered that your old campaign characters have had a busy life, and they seem to be popping up in places. We'll get to that later. You went to Ivar, you warned them of the army, and then they gave you an army and marched south along with you to Port Ira. And about the time you got to Port Ira, the sky went dark. I forgot one notable thing a long time ago. Back in Steamcliff, a star appeared.
Oh, yeah.
But now the sky has gone dark. And you march down there with their army. Their army doesn't seem to show up. It seems like they're going that way. They don't seem to show up. You're kind of trying to meet up with them. No army. But you managed to find at the Patra house, the little fisher hut house, that there's a tunnel that leads underground under the chromatic sea. Lots of traps, lots of dead folks. The lizards seem to have taken all of those humans from Port Illidan and used them as cannon fodder. They set off the traps. Any problems, they were the front line. They took the damage so that everyone can move in there. And deep under chromatic sea, you find the old vault with like an old ancient gnomish library, the tomb of Adro, the Kraken, the tomb of Xerix, the mythical bad guy. Maybe not so mythical, because I think you know that he was a person. He led the Maru a long time ago. And some unknown person behind a wall. You also came across a domed room in there, which comes in later. And then you went further under some more caverns, down further under the sea, and you came to you found the lizard folk that you guys were trailing. They were down there with a giant ancient red dragon, setting the dragon free. And like what remaining humans and halflings they had were appeasing the dragon while they set the dragon free, which is Mama Omira. She busts through the roof. Water comes splashing in. Everyone gets flooded. You guys eventually make your way back out through the sea to the tunnels.
Yeah.
And one by one, you manage to kill the lizards because they're trying to escape, and you're just hacking them down one by one. None of them talk except for one. And you didn't get much out of him other than the fact that he called you insignificant. That seemed to be his word. He didn't think you guys...
He was a jerk.
Yeah, he was a jerk.
What a jerk.
When you get out, you find that Mama Omira, had attacked Fort Ivar. It was burning, and you made your way back over there. Port Ira, down this way. This is where you guys are over here. Port Ira here is abandoned. They're all leaving up to Fort Ivar here, which was attacked. You also learned that an army of lizard folk had come into the town, the fort, and they couldn't stop, along with the dragon. They couldn't stop it, and they didn't do much other than get to the keep and steal a gem, like a diamond, and they just steal it and just run off. So, that's chapter 4. Chapter 5. This one's Emir City. Not as exciting. But you guys are walking back to Emir City, and you got, I have it written down here, whooped by a giant jaguar. And you managed to, you followed, on my map here, so you kind of follow the road here. You're deep in Emir territory here, but you know this is kind of sketchy lands. But you find a jaguar, and hidden in that jaguar lair, there's sort of a tomb, an ancient tomb, and you discover the tomb of Mirrodin, who was the creator of the Kahar stones. Some ancient fellow who made some fancy stones, which kind of alludes to that stone that was in Fort Ivar. One of them, anyway. Yeah. He also had a cloak, which Sunny Cheeks, who has made his appearance now. Sorry, Sunny, I forgot. I left you out of there. Sunny Cheeks is here.
I was wondering. I was like, what?
I came in way before.
Yeah, he came in. But whenever
I was like, when is he?
He was back in chapter 3. behind enemy
Oh.
lines. Sunny Cheek shows up.
Gosh.
I'm a little out of. It's mostly in order here. So you found a cloak, found a fancy cloak, and then you eventually made your way. Just a few stops along the way, but you made your way to Amir City. This big one over here, Amir City. Amir City was. You went there because you wanted to warn the king, and also get some sort. I think mostly wanted to. I think it was mostly it. Warn the king about what's going on down there and try to get some sort of like help. But the king's envoy was not very helpful. It wouldn't let you in. You made a buddy named Darwin. Darwin the halfling worked at the library. He was very interested in your cloak, and you guys in particular. I think he made you soup at his house. What a guy. You eventually went to the librarian, who was a snobby elf, and she didn't really pay much attention to you until she, yeah, it's called librarian museum. Yeah. Well, I had a good word for it.
Artificium?
Is that what it was? Is that? Yeah, that must have been it.
Artificium? Yeah.
Good one.
I have written down.
Library museum.
You're like,
all
my
in
own
one.
idea. Yes.
Delicious.
So she leads the place, and she kind of like, whatever, get out of my sight. But then she saw the cloak, and then she got very curious about it. And
Very.
you guys thought she was too curious for it. And so you snuck out of town.
We got the heck out of it.
And when you got out of town, you're like, well, what do we do now? Well, let's ask Hope. So you went and you talked to Hope, and Hope says, go see a Ravelin. And so you walked north out of Amir City. You met some bandits along the way. You crossed the road, and you ran into an invisible barrier that was just like, it was as if nothing was there. There was just a wall there. And eventually you found your way in. Remember, it's still dark now. There's no the sun's not rising. It's just still dark ever since the truck down to the Chromatic Sea. You found a hole, and inside that barrier, it was daytime. It was like normal times. You camped inside there, but way off in the distance, you noticed some flying things. Zarik smelled devil from his past, and it seemed to be a devil city of some kind. Imps, those kind of things.
Devil City.
And where am I at? I lost my place. You ran to the barrier. You found it was Devil Lands. And then eventually you trekked your way up northwest. You had the freaky thing in the canyons there, the little bugs. And you eventually made your way up here to the mountains. This road here is pretty much occupied by lizard folk. Not pretty much. It is occupied by lizard folk. And you made your way into these mountains and found a cave. You found a bear that you tormented a little bit. You made your way into the fire caves. And eventually, a side passage led you into a town of turtles with a nice defense mechanism of an ancient beholder. And they seemed friendly. They let you stay there. They gave you a nice beholder stew. And they told you, oh yeah, the fire caves, Mithra and Aravalin, yeah, they're just right down here. I'll show you. Which leads us into Chapter 6.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Familiar faces, I call this one. So you travel through the caves. We spent like a whole night just on getting you through this fire trap. Well, mostly just getting Zarik through the fire trap. But eventually you made it through a fire trap.
Oh, yeah.
And led you into this other,
That was funny.
like this little pocket.
That was not fun.
That was fun.
Pocket dimension of with an old ship on a beach. Out of character. This is the old PC's old ship with the mansion on it still. If that wasn't clear, I think it was clear. I think I made that clear, but just in case that wasn't. Your old ship from the old campaign. And you make your way to the mansion inside there. When you first arrived, Alvin, some young sorcerer, met you guys. And he was a little confused because you didn't have a red gem in your chest. And you're not supposed to be here if you don't have a red gem in your chest. But you made your way by. You went and you met Mithra and Aravalin, who were Lorius and Finn from the past campaign. You also learned that there are 5 Kahar stones. The white one was being held at Fort Ivar. The other 4 Or there's a black one, a red one, a green one, and a blue one. And I removed my... I don't have it written down what they do, but you... I gave you what all they do?
Black was a gateway stone. Red was a mind control stone. Green was to fix the sky. He didn't tell us what that does though. White was a barrier stone, and blue was a water stone.
Okay. And that these were... You kind of figured out that these were made by mages to try to, like... I think I gave you all this, but they were made by mages kind of during dark times to try to fix things. There was, there's a Shadow Age way back, and you know that there is magic in the world, not because of these stones, but because of Lorius and Finn, or Mithra and Aravalin, among others, that fixed this and they basically gave their magic to create the magic in this world, which means they cannot leave this little pocket universe and have any power. They want you to go out and find who's in charge of these the Nostra and these lizards. Finn really wants you to figure that out. He wanted to use you as bait to figure that out because he needs to be stopped. Mithra or Lorius was more concerned about just fixing the world because it's dark outside. People are going to start panicking. Somewhere along the way, there a long time ago, you came across a poem about the world turning dark, light appearing. I think it was the other way around. Light appears, world turns dark, earthquakes, sea turns red, Xerix returns. Something along the lines of that. And I'll let you piece that together. You hang out at that place. You use your new cloak, which you find out is a teleportation cloak, which can take you anywhere, just once every 7 days safely, ish. You try to jump to the dome room, which you now found out is a map room. You failed, and you ended up in some nearby caves. And while you're there, you met Frema. She was a trapped explorer. There was a lot of insight checks. Eventually, not through those insight checks, you discovered she was a murderous hag, and she murdered some other explorers, and she kept their souls in a bag. Eventually, Zarik's soul was in that bag. I thought it was going to be over for poor Zarik, but she was killed, and Zarik was saved. And
you sound so sad about that.
Well, maybe she was going to go to that
like she.
Eventually you make it. I'm all off sorts on my map here. You come down. Sorry, my lights. I'm all off. You come way down here to where this pyramid is. This is where the wrong caves you came to. You came to a pyramid site of the storm god, where you found Frema. You trekked your way along the coast here. You found some goblins. You did a little bit of killing. And you made your way back to Port Ira. And it's been deserted. But you found out there was a couple of scrappers. I think that's everything. A couple scrappers that were hanging out in that old fish house, the Patra house, which you guys were at before. Taking the loot off those dead bodies that you guys killed before. And also some stuff from underground. So you went back underground, through the archive, through the Goblin Library and Xerix's tomb and Adra's tomb, and eventually into the map room, which you discovered was a map room as you pulled that body off, and it sort of discharged this sort of buildup that was clouding the thing. And it was a map of the world, including some that you guys don't know. But you've seen it a couple times before. And you pop this gem. I forgot this. I told you this. I forgot to tell you that Mithra made a gem for you to put in here to temporarily fix this. And so you popped it into the map spot. The map flashed a whole bunch of times, like cycled through a whole bunch of times. And a door appeared. There was some dials on it. You didn't touch those. You ran back. You came back outside. You learned that the world had like flashed through as well. Like day, night, like multiple times. But now everything's fine. Teleport back to Mithra and Aravalin. Araval's not there. Mithra is there. You ask her about Frema. She says, yeah, we stashed some of the extra problems we stashed into these laves, she called them, jugs, jars, canopic jar, basically things. So there's some bad monsters in there. We could store them in some vaults around the place. Not all in the same place. And she was one of them. I think she revealed she was an ancient gone that turned hag and kind of stuck that way. And Zarik went on a little journey with Mithra to get cured. Zarik came back. And you guys decided to, after spending some time there, you decided to head north. It's on my other map here. Zoom in. North from the fire caves up to Talon, because that is where Saren's sister is being held. And that's also where Yendra, you think Yendra is. That it?
I think.
Sum it all up?
Yeah, we decided to go through instead of over the mountain.
Yeah,
And
through the
then we
mountains.
Fell in. So then last week we fell in behind, before we ended early, we fell in behind a group of injured lizard folk.
Yeah.
Still going slow.
I'll sum all that up in here in a second. Is there anything I left out? Any important names that I left out? Anybody have any questions? Like, is anything like not clear? I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that aren't clear, but anything that's like,
Well,
Hey,
wait.
what's going on here?
I just, I want to know if Krog knows where his family's killer went, or if he knows where he was headed.
the guy with red eyes?
Yes,
You're not sure who it was. You've seen a few people with red eyes.
but I thought, wasn't there one that I was like,
Yeah, so
kind of?
whenever you were down there with Mama Omira, big ancient red dragon, you saw like appeared to be the leader of these Nostra, and he looked at you, and that sent the shiver down your spine.
Okay.
And you gather that's the guy.
Right.
You don't know his name, and you don't know where he went.
Okay.
But you presume that's what Aravelin and Mithra both want to know too. They want to know who that is.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
There's been signs that it's Xerix, but there's also been signs that it's not Xerix.
Okay.
I may have misinterpreted something, so I'll ask for clarification. Chain. It was my understanding that Chain was leading the Nostra and presumably had reached like overtaken part of the bond. But I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, that's what Yendra told you.
Okay.
She was like, yeah, she was real like something ain't right here because Elradar's in charge of the bond, as far as you know, as far as you always knew. But she discovered that something with Chain is leading this. I'm trying to remember what all I revealed back then. He had, I think he basically just knew that Chain was ahead of Elradar, and this bond was a much bigger organization. And Yendra thinks that Chain is in charge of everything. He's leading the lizards, he's leading the bond, he's everything. I think she saw that you were mentioned in one of those notes or something whenever you had left. But Elradar didn't know anything about it. That's what kind of first led her into that, down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I guess she's the one who told me that she thought that Elradar had something to do with burning down the inn or whatever.
Did she say Elradar?
Well, she suggested that he knew.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.